Hello, everyone. Welcome to Buddhist Center. It's Sunday, and we're so fortunate to get to talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. We are here today, and when we look at the meditations that we do as Buddhists on the fact that, death will come and nothing can stop it. We don't know when we're going to die, and the only thing that can help us is Dharma. And we look at Nagarjuna's letter to a friend that says that with all of the circumstances that can end our life, we should be so amazed that when we exhale, we inhale again. We should be so amazed with all the counter forces to us being alive. So when I say we're so fortunate to be here, this is part of the foundation of that. It's amazing with all the counter forces. Think about all the environmental forces that could cause us to not be alive today at any moment. Rains, hurricanes, floods, all these kind of environmental forces. And then think about being on the road, car accidents, or other places wild animals can attack. And think about the internal forces within our body that are working against each other. And one slight malfunction and then our life is over. One slight amount of too much blood lost and our life is over. One not breathing for just the right amount of time will end our life. And there's so many circumstances that can cause us to bleed, so many circumstances that can cause us to not breathe for an extended period of time, long enough that we die. There's so many circumstances environmentally, as I said, that can end our life. Entire villages are wiped out that were there yesterday, and then the next day they're no longer there. None of those people in any of the circumstances, car accidents or internal forces that suddenly you find out at a very young age, as one of our friends did, you have a glioma, a brain tumor that ends your life in less than a year at the age of around 40 something. So we have all of these circumstances that are working against us. So Nagarjuna says it's amazing when we exhale that we inhale again. It's amazing that when we go to sleep, we wake up in the morning and we're able to do this again. And if we have this Lam Rim as the foundation and we start to really understand it, the fact that we're present in the moment with all these counter forces that are that could kill us, all these counter forces, internal, external, all these forces that could kill us, even a snake bite, could kill us, all of these internal and external forces. When we start to realize that, yes, we are here, and then we see what being here alive means with this human basis, and we know that we have the Dharma in our life, and we have all of the circumstances necessary to really practice the stages of the path to enlightenment that lead to one specific destination, and that's perfection, Buddhahood, omniscience, complete reliability, perfect wisdom, love, power, compassion, skillful means, all of those things that we know that the Buddha has. So here we are with this human basis that's alive, that has a lot of ways to not be alive, and will definitely not be alive in the future, and we don't know when. Could be as soon as in a minute. But we have this minute, if it's in a minute, and in this minute, we have the potential to evolve our minds, to mature our minds towards a place where we never suffer again and only have bliss and happiness. So when we say we're so fortunate to be here today, it's wonderful to be here on a Sunday, we're not only here, but we're taking the essence of the human basis that we have here. And there's so many other bases that even if we are here and not dead, aren't anywhere near as valuable, because in the lower realms, we're so plagued with suffering, we'll be really hard to practice the Dharma. And in the higher realms above where we are, and even in circumstances in this human realm, sometimes there's way too much kind of sensorial happiness where there's too much distraction to practice the Dharma. But in this moment here, we're kind of in this sweet spot where we have a pleasant mix, if there could be one in samsara, of suffering and contaminated happiness. We have this pleasant mix, not pleasant, unpleasant mix, but I say pleasant mix because it allows for a window in there for us to stop and practice the Dharma, because the happiness isn't so extreme that we don't practice the Dharma, and the suffering isn't so extreme that we don't practice the Dharma. So here we have this basis right now that's so valuable, and we exhale. You just probably did within the last few seconds, and inhaled again. Amazing, amazing. So many people exhaled and then didn't inhale again. Billions of humans. How many have today, next hour, this day, this week will exhale and not inhale again? And if you've seen folks, a lot of times when they pass, they go, and that's it, and they don't inhale again. So how many people will do that? And will this be us? And if it's not us, what are we going to do in the meantime until it is? So today, we're so fortunate to be here, to be looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, because we're in that sweet spot where we could do something about the fact that we keep having to suffer and don't experience bliss all the time. We could change the circumstance that we're in from this sweet spot that we're here. So yes, we're so fortunate to be here today. And this sweet spot that we're in, from which we can change, fortunately, the material in front of us is the most kind of speedy way to change in terms of material that we can study and read and apply that exists, because these stages of the path to enlightenment have been put into a concise, detailed way that any spiritual practitioner can judge his or her mind using this beautiful text and many texts like it that encompass all of the stages of the path to enlightenment in a graduated fashion. So this is the material that we're looking at today. So it's like we've won the lottery, but we never really recognize it. And the more we meditate on this precious human basis, and we meditate on the beings of, the teachings for beings of three capacity, we realize that if we're breathing in, breathing out, and we've woken up, and we're doing something related to the Dharma, we're doing something that's so rare. Because just this human basis alone takes so much to get. It takes pure aspirations and ethics and practice of the six perfections. And, there's so many things that need to happen and for us to get this human basis. And here we have it now. And to get it, if we know we got it by making stainless aspirations, and that, we engaged in ethical behavior at some point in time, contaminated virtues at some point in time that connected us to this. And we practiced generosity and patience also, and, made effort and concentrated and made our minds calmer at some point and got wisdom. It's the only way we could be connecting to teachings on concentration and wisdom and patience. We've, have some sort of familiarization with this in the past. We have this imprint within our mind that allows us today to connect with these teachings for beings of three capacities. And this information, as I'm saying, about the practices for beings of three capacities will allow us to see, where we are to practice, where we need help, and so forth. So without going any further, I just wanted to explain kind of the information that we're going to be looking at. We're looking at information that allows us to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. That is the definition of bodhicitta, aspiring to enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, the sake of all, or benefit of all sentient beings. How could all sentient beings be truly benefited if we could somehow figure out how they could get what we want, freedom from suffering and bliss. So we figure out then how would they be benefited? They'd be benefited only if we wanted to, look at it in terms of how could we repay the kindness of other beings, they would be benefited if we could repay them in a way that would be stable, really, really making someone happy, really, really making someone not to have to suffer. So the way that we do that in a gradual fashion, in a more productive way, in a more skillful way, is to practice this path and eventually become bodhisattvas and become more and more and more and more reliable, to eventually the point of complete reliability when we become a Buddha. So we should set our motivation from the beginning that we want to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So with that in mind, share this experience with all sentient beings. All sentient beings want the same exact thing that you want. All sentient beings are equally important. When we do meditation on previous lives, and we set up the ground of equanimity, that actually comes from some of the things that we're learning in the medium scope, believe it or not. We set up this kind of a ground of equanimity. We recognize that everybody is equally important, and everybody has taken care of us and has had every relationship with us in our previous lives. So we become more and more willing as we do these meditations, these kind of, that are these making us more intelligent to the point where they make us, their analysis that kind of leads to an effective way of thinking and being. And the more and more we have this analysis, each time we do a step like trying to bring all sentient beings here to share this gift of the Dharma with them, the more and more it will be real, and the more we'll feel like we're connecting to those sentient beings, because we'll have meditated on them having taken care of us when we were so vulnerable. So this desire, this unbearability starts to be created in your mind of seeing them suffer. It's unbearable to see them suffer. It's unbearable to see them not being deprived of bliss. It becomes unbearable when you start to look at how compassion and love comes about, and this unbearability comes into your meditation when you're starting to try to do Tonglen, and you're starting to have create this bodhicitta field of all sentient beings around you to share the Dharma, or to whatever you're doing, whatever meditation you're doing, where the object of observation is all sentient beings, but increases in terms of your emotional connection to them as you do these analytical meditations, such as a 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and equalizing, exchanging self with others, and equanimity meditation. As we do these things, then it becomes more and more a feeling that's invoked related to the objects of observation. So that feeling that's invoked related to those objects allows you to, when you're out and about in your daily life, start to see sentient beings within the meditation as having taken care of you when you're vulnerable. And then if you're doing that in the supermarket, you've now really thought about a being that then when you're doing today's meditation, you have now an extra being that you've connected to and thought about in that way, that you can bring here today, and know that they know people, and imagine that their people are being brought here. So now you're expanding the actual reality of your bodhicitta meditation, the bodhicitta field. It's you can just think of dots, as I've said before in teachings, but the more of those dots that are filled in with real beings, the more effective the actual meditation becomes, because it then takes on a purpose and an emotional feeling that's connected to it, that's real, as opposed to just kind of this way out there idea of wanting to somehow connect with dots that are beings. You have to have the beings, and then the dots that you just recognize you're veiled and you just can't fill them in yet. And it should be so frustrating for you that you must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. These meditations we're doing should be cueing you. You have this extraordinary attitude. I want to become I'll take it upon myself, the task of freeing them all. I'll take upon myself from suffering. I'll take it upon myself, the task of bringing them all to happiness. Them all. And then you do your meditation on this, all brave, and you realize there's dots not filled in. Why? You're not omniscient. I have to become a Buddha if I want to accomplish this goal of bringing sentient beings to a place free from suffering, where there's complete happiness. So your meditation should cue you, like, oh, I'm a bodhisattva. Oh, I'm a this. I'm enlightened. Well, your meditation should cue you at how small your capacity is when you see 6 realms and you're dotting in more than half of the realms. You're saying, okay, Buddha said there's hell. I didn't see that. Dots. Buddha says there's hungry ghosts. I didn't see that. Dots. A lot of animals I can't see, but a lot of animals I can see. Some dots. Humans, a lot I can't see. Dots. A lot I can see, beings. And then we go higher and it's just dots. Dots, you can't teach the truth of suchness to a dot. You could only teach the truth of suchness to the being that you're trying to connect to. So this is how our meditations become more potent, and how our interactions in our daily life make our meditations more potent, and how our bodhicitta field can be increased as we go throughout our years of life by trying to be mindful in our moments of our day, so that we can increase our bodhicitta field, so that those dots fill in. And eventually we get to the point where our meditative concentration allows our minds to see things now we can't currently see. And then our concentrations will allow us to travel to places mentally, unimpeded. Without this, while I'm sitting here, I could travel unimpeded mentally if I didn't have all this screwiness in me. And I could go to those beings and they wouldn't be dots. But right now I don't have shamatha, so I can't get those kind of clairvoyances without shamatha. And I don't have special insight, and I haven't even equipped myself with enough wisdom arisen from hearing to really have fluency in all of the things that I would need to see about the truth of suchness once the dots are filled in. So we need to have both this calm mind and a very wise mind. And the only way that we get to the place where it's the calmest and the wisest is by doing these step-by-step practices. So while I recite this small verse from the prayer of noble conduct, the Sanche Malam, where I'm saying, may I give this teaching in the language of all. This is me aspiring to do this. I say, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. If this was on my mind day and night, I'd be a bodhisattva. But I'm aspiring to become a bodhisattva. It's not aspiring bodhicitta. I'm aspiring to have aspiring bodhicitta. So we have to recognize this. I'm aspiring, to have aspiring bodhicitta, where then I'm aspiring to have aspiring bodhicitta so that I can have engaged bodhicitta, so that then I can practice the 6 perfections in relation to sentient beings for their sake, day and night. So let's figure out how to set a mental basis up. It's right in Panchen Sanadrapa's general meaning of perfection. There's got to be a mental basis, and refuge is in there. Seeing the conqueror's excellent qualities. So you want to become a Buddha. Well, you've learned that in refuge. You learn the excellent qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. Rinpoche's prayer, I bow down to your body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. We learn this in refuge. It says in the ground for bodhicitta, you have to see the excellent qualities of the conqueror. There's 4, I think, if we went over this mental basis. So all this stuff we're doing is creating mental basis for us to be able to day and night work for sentient beings' needs, to be able to actually be of use to others, real use, not the I can help you, give you a ride over there, Sure, you're giving them a ride over there to get some more samsara, to get some more contaminated happiness. What if you could know as a bodhisattva, sure, I'll give you a ride over there and figure out how on that ride to move them closer to Buddhahood. You're not checking out, but you're becoming more and more skillful. You're having clairvoyance happen. You're having a real attitude where you're putting others' needs before your own, and there's not that selfishness in there. Imagine what you could do on that ride you gave the person if you weren't so selfish and you were only thinking of their needs and their needs in terms of ultimate Buddhahood. If you were thinking of, okay, I've got a 20-minute window and how do I not proselytize this? We aren't like knocking on doors, as Buddhas are skillful because they know that you have to discover it for yourself. So Buddha is trying to figure out how to get you to discover things for yourself, not how that's the trick here. So when I say in the language of all beings, it's so that they can discover it themselves. I can't discover it for them. The Buddha can't discover it for you. You have to discover it for yourselves. Okay. Lai ke dan le dan de jin ke zhi ben da dan mi ye ke nan dan zhe wa gun ji zhan nan ji zang ba dan che ke du da ji ji den do. In the language of the gods, nagas, and yakshas, in the language of demons and of humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. So when we look into that, I'm proclaiming the Dharma. The Buddhas teach the truth of suchness, and the Buddhas teach the truth of suchness to all beings' capacity. So the language of all, their language, their capacity, the Dharma that they understand. So there's an aspiration made here. So imagine that you bring all sentient beings here. If you haven't already done so, hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigods, and gods is here as your guest. And now imagine that you, leading all beings, get into the 7-point Vairakana posture. So, you're setting an example now. In one of the qualities in the 7-point Vairakana posture, you'll find is that it encourages others who see you in the posture. We'll find it in the text. It's slipping my mind. Pandit, where's that from? Maybe Kamala Shila's stages of meditation. We'll find out. But it encourages others. So imagine that you're in this 7-point Vairakana posture, and it's encouraging others to get into this 7-point Vairakana posture. And this is a posture that's an uncommon posture, meaning that it's a posture that Buddhists use, 7-point Vairakana posture. Legs crossed, right hand and left thumbs touching, back straight, vertebrae like a stack of coins, shoulders in a comfortable position, not leaning forward, not leaning back, just in a comfortable position, but your back is straight like a stack of coins, so keep that in mind. Head slightly tilted forward, not back, slightly tilted forward. In Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Treatise on the Stage of the Tantric Path, it talks about like a goose or something, a peacock, like a bird's neck, slightly bent. Okay, so have your eyes slightly open, focused on the nose. So your head's slightly lightly bent, so it makes it a little easier. Your eye is just gazing at the nose, just straight down. Big nose like mine, it's easier to do, but don't strain your eyes. You're trying to just get it, eyes slightly open, focused kind of downward in that fashion. And mouth comfortable. Tongue on the top of the palate against the teeth. So this is what you're leading sentient beings in doing this. And then sometimes in Kamala Shila's stages of the meditation, it talks about then the breath, the breathing in and out, breathing all the way in, all the way out, but very, very naturally. We just studied this on Thursday night about how to get shamatha, very, very naturally, as Holiness says. Not making noise, not making it so distracting, just naturally, but making sure you breathe all the way in, And this is, of course, your mouth is closed, your tongue's on the roof. So in this meditation, we're breathing through our nose. So we're breathing in all the way to the top of the breath and breathing out in a natural fashion. And this allows us to kind of clear our minds out. Just kind of clear our minds out. So this is a technique that you can do. We're going to just start a little differently today, because this is what, this is a technique that you can just do in order to just get everything down to a more calm place, align your body in a way that it can be aligned, and begin focusing on the breath, breathing in and out. And in Pabonka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, it talks about counting the breath on the exhale. So those who need to calm their minds down, a lot of times we, start too complex, start with, ways that are too complicated. And we really just need to shut our mind up enough to then shut our mind up. So here is a technique that will allow us to, at any time, once we get more and more familiar with it, calm our minds down to a place where we could actually be realistic and then learn to truly calm our mind down. So sometimes Buddha said, before you kind of get to the real, liberating path, those things that will cut the root of cyclic existence, end your samsara, you have to suppress certain things. If attachment's too much of a problem, meditate on ugliness, the reality of the real, situation of everything. If aversion's a problem, meditate on love. If ignorance is a problem, meditate on dependent origination. At the low, you can meditate on it at the very basic level of dependent origination. If pride's a problem, meditate on the varieties of phenomena you don't know about. So there are all of these antidotes that are given. And if conceptuality is a problem, the Buddha said, focus on the breath. And the way to focus on the breath is in a very even way, bringing it all the way to the top. Because generally speaking, and I've heard a lot of teachers talk, we don't breathe well. We don't give enough breath into our body. We don't oxygenate ourselves well enough. And in order for us to do proper meditation, we need everything flowing properly. The mind rides on the subtle wind. So thinking about that, wouldn't you want to make it, as easy, for it, to have as much of that space and presence as possible in a kind of even manner? You can just think about it. Just think about your breathing in and out. And if it's true that the mind rides on the subtle wind, if you're stunting breath, there's something this experiential you can have right now with it. Think about it. If your mind is somehow riding on the subtle wind and you're not breathing all the way, there's something stunted there. And then there's also stopping the breath as you get to the higher stages also provides clarity. But that's stopping the breath that's been fully inhaled and fully exhaled. So you're first learning how to properly breathe and properly have your winds going right. So this is the foundation. You want to practice Tantra? Well, okay, we'll do this first. Get your mind to a place where that could even be a remote reality. And then go from there. So today, let's just practice this a little bit. Let's see what that would feel like. And again, now we're not thinking of everyone around us breathing. We're trying to get our mind inward. Calm, abiding, fixed meditation is mind inward, fixed on something, not outward, sensory, not hearing, smelling things, tasting things, seeing things, feeling things. We're not doing that. We're just mentally focusing. And we're trying to, that's why we have our eyes squinted. It's so that we can, have as little object of observation of eye consciousness going on. But when you close it, there's a tendency to get sleepy. And there's not a clarity or a brilliance there. So yeah, let's try to get all of us together, individually though. So, everyone's like, oh yeah, 7-point Vairocana posture. This is great. I heard it. Yeah, thank you. I've led everyone to that. Now it's your turn to lead into your own mind. So now focusing now internally, drawing your mind in. And you know what that means. Right now I'm staring at that lamp, drawing my mind in. Now it's something different. Just think about when you stare at the lamp. Now close your eyes and imagine something. Two totally different things happening. Imagine lamp and the real lamp. One you're doing in your mind, one you're doing with your eyes. The one that you just thought about in your mind, that's the mechanism we're working with today. We're not looking at the lamp, we're thinking the lamp, if that makes sense. We're not thinking a lamp, we're going to be meditating on the breath. But it's that mind that thinks of something that we're working with, not the one that, not the mind that the sense consciousness, not the sense mind, the mental consciousness. I know that sounds strange, mental mind, but that's how we speak in Buddhism, and you have to learn low rig to know what that is. And I encourage you to learn low rig because it's very, very helpful. So we're going to meditate with our mind, breathing in and out and counting if you'd like. I think it's helpful because it tells you whether or not, what number am I on? You're not focusing. Hold on 1 second. What number am I on? That's not focusing on the breathing in and out and the counting. It's better. It's nice to have a marker in the beginning that marks, kind of throws a flag at us, because we can be, I'm focusing on the breath and the weather. The counting somehow lets us know whether it's the breath or the weather. There's something about the counting, and there's something that is encouraging about the counting if you practice regularly, because you'll see improvement. You'll have a gauge. I don't mean you're going to have a gauge like you may have a few good days. Make sure your gauge is like, okay, for the last 3 months, not like I had a really good day and was able to, count to 1,000, without defocusing, count to 1,000 for like a month straight, and then you'll know you've made that kind of progress. I mean, you'll be able to see this kind of, sensibly see progress if you use the counting. So just imagine now, and just focusing on just breathing in, breathing out, and counting the breath. I'm not going to give any more instruction than that, whether you're feeling it or you're just breathing in. Your mind is just counting it and looking at the breath. That's it. Breathing in all the way to the top, breathing out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so hopefully from doing that, you feel a little bit of calmness. From that calm mind, think about, I'm here today to learn everything that I need to do to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, a fully awakened being who no longer has afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience. What does that mean? A being who no longer suffers ever again in cyclic existence. A being who is perfect, omniscient, reliable, and always and only experiences bliss. May we become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Becoming a Buddha that is empty of inherent existence. For sentient beings that are empty of inherent existence. And the I, the self of person, the Jeff, is empty of inherent existence. Yet, through dependent origination, Jeff can become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Because Jeff exists, sentient beings exist, and Buddhahood exists. And this mind of bodhicitta exists. But it doesn't inherently exist. And the mind doesn't inherently exist. Because the mind doesn't inherently exist, it can transform. If the mind inherently exists like my mind is right now, we would all be in trouble. But because my mind doesn't inherently exist, it doesn't have this nature that's sullied, doesn't have these stains that I experience every day that make me act out in negative ways as part of its nature. These things are added into it. There's something that are just there that can be removed. And if what's in its place dependently originates into awakening, then it will just never stop dependently originating into that. And right now, my experience is dependently originating into that which my imprints are projecting. And all this while, this projection that's happening from these imprints within my mental consciousness, this projection that's happening, has within it the experience, the appearance that everything is inherently existent. And recognizing that myself, the mind that aspires to enlightenment, all sentient beings, being inherently empty of inherent existence, is the actual nature. Yet it's my perception of it as being objectively existent, existing right in the object, inherently, intrinsically, that causes all of my problems. So my mind is empty of inherent existence, and the Buddha's mind is empty of inherent existence. Now imagine from that potential, Buddha Shakyamuni emerges in the front of you, the space in front of you. So loving and caring, looking into your eyes. And imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is overwhelmed with bliss, seeing that we're here and all sentient beings are here to practice, to learn how to become Buddhas, to learn how to achieve the state that he's achieved. And imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni now explodes into the merit field in terms of Buddha Shakyamuni has been all in one, containing the merit field. And imagine that the merit field begins to fill in the space in front of you. And all sentient beings now are witnessing the whole entire merit field filling in the space in front of you. All the enlightened beings are becoming, are coming into the room where you are and where all sentient beings are. And you're able to start seeing them start to appear, imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and imagine Khenso Geshe Wandak, so loving, looking into our eyes. He took care of us for so many years and taught us so many things. Imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Khenso Lobsang Gyatso, Demolocha Rinpoche, Geshe Doje Damdu, Umzala Geshe Aga, Geshe Malatenzin Ladrin, Jeffrey Hopkins. Imagining all these holy beings, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Chado Rinpoche, all these beings we feel connected to, and think about their teachers. If you know their teachers' names, we're so fortunate that Rinpoche had the teachers that he had, like Ling Rinpoche and Trijung Rinpoche and Zong Rinpoche. Again, Uzir, again, Lachap, Khenser Pema Jetson, Shakar Gen Nima. We're so fortunate. Rinpoche had such qualified teachers. Imagine the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vamuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyabhadra and Gunaprabha and Lama Salimpa And Lord Atisha, imagining the beings, the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Baba Vega and Chandrashita and Kamalashila. And again, imagining Lama Salimpa and Atisha, imagining all these holy beings in the space in front of you, the beings of the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara to Saraha, Matripa to Lopanropa, Lotsawa Marpa, Milarepa, Gampopa. These holy beings right here we're so connected to, in the room with you. You could reach out, imagine that you could touch their hands. If you didn't have the karmic veil right now, you could hold Buddha Shakyamuni's hand, you could hold Kensur Geshe Wandak's hand. Whenever we invite the merit field, they arrive. We just have a karmic veil and can't see them. Imagine that this karmic veil isn't there. Imagine that we're actually able to see those omniscient beings that spontaneously arrive when we ask for their protection and their help. Imagining that Lord Atisha is passing the Lamrim lineage down to Drontompa, the three old Kadampa lineages, the holy beings of the Nyingma, Padmasambhava, Sakya, Sakya Kanganimpo, Satya Pandita, the Kaji lineages of the Karmapas, and imagining the Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtap J, Jelsop J, Basuchuji Jetson, Panchen Sanandrapa, Jayan Sheba, Janja Rupi Dorje, Gonchu Jimmy Wampo, the seventh Dalai Lama, Jetsumba. We're so fortunate. Jetson, Josie Jetson. We're so fortunate to have these beings in our world or have come to our world to be able to teach us the truth of suchness so that we can become liberated. And the true truth of reality about the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude, so that we can couple that idea that there are downfalls of self-cherishing attitude that brings about bodhicitta with emptiness, so that we can become complete Buddhas. Imagine the beings, the highest yoga tantra, performance tantra, action tantra, all the 35 Buddhas. Again, imagining these as real beings in space in front of you, all of the protector deities. Now, all beings in the universe are here. So wonderful. Sit with that for a moment. How wonderful. You've led every being who has any amount of suffering or isn't experiencing the utmost happiness here in order to figure out how to experience those things. And you've brought them here and they're sitting in front of all the beings that know the only way to do it. And you've brought them here to hear exactly how to do it. And imagine just how wonderful it is for all of us learning how to do it, and how wonderful it is for the merit field to see us here, because all they care about is us doing it. So have this experience right now. Such a wonderful, joyful moment. So many times we do our practice and it's just like, it's like we're, just trying to get something done. It shouldn't be like that. It should be light and joyous and have full experience and emotion. Now, with this feeling, we'll recite the Heart Sutra. And we know that in the Heart Sutra, we're so fortunate. In the Heart Sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni teaches the ultimate view of reality. The second turning of the wheel of Dharma, Buddha came to Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain after the first turning of the wheel of Dharma of teaching the Four Noble Truths, and kind of blew everybody's mind with what the nature of reality really is. This kind of subjective labeling independence upon collections. That is the only way you can show that something exists. Wow. And the Buddha says that the fact that we think that things exist in some other way, besides from their own side, besides just mere imputation and dependence upon a collection, this idea that things have something separate from that process, that subjective process, is what leads us to overvalue everything, negatively overvalue it, positively overvalue it. And when we have overvalue, when something's overvalued, you're paying too much for it. You're just paying too much for it. It's overvalued. So what are you paying for this overvaluing? When you're running after things you think you need and don't get them, and when you get them, you're not satisfied. What is the cost of this overvaluing? When you're so angry at things because of your misunderstanding that it can take over a week of your mind, because you think that from whatever you're mad at's own side inherently exists, and it's something that you should be angry at, and you don't see any subjective interaction there. How much did it cost you? How much has anger cost you? How much has attachment cost you? How much has overinflated pride cost you? The exaggeration or overvaluing of this inherently existent self of person that doesn't exist. There's no inherently existent self of person to find. But I don't try to see if it's true or not. I just overvalue it and believe in something that's a lie. And that belief in this idea that things deserve my attention the way that I give them keeps me in cyclic existence. The Buddha said that first I have the self-grasping ignorance. Then I have some sort of conceptuality that goes on, an exaggeration, overvaluing, because I'm grasping at that chair to have a self, to have its own. When we say self, self isn't only about a person in Buddhism. That chair has a self, we think. The self, it's the chair thing sitting over there. The self of person, self of phenomena. So anyway, I got a little distracted. So, because I was looking at the chair and analyzing the chair. But this is the sort of thing that we need to do. We need to see if that the way that we kind of perceive things and then react to things is rational or not, and how the things that we perceive and react to truly abide versus how we think they abide. And if they're only kind of abiding in terms of the next step of exaggeration in our mind, in terms of what we're exaggerating, because we're exaggerating something that doesn't exist, then if we're exaggerating that in our mind, that's the only thing that we can do is reverse the exaggeration. And the way we reverse the exaggeration is with stopping what starts the conceptuality or the exaggeration. And that's starting to see if this thing that we're exaggerating, that we're starting from, tallies with reality. Because if it doesn't, then we don't have anything to think in a way that's to overvalue. If there isn't a thing there, there's nothing to overvalue. But there is something there that exists subjectively, but the overvaluing of it comes from thinking it exists inherently. So we need to sort that out. And the Heart Sutra is what that's about. And today we're going to say no more about emptiness. But the Heart Sutra explicitly talks about this idea that things don't have inherent existence, that they are merely designated by a thought in dependence upon a collection. And that refers to all phenomena, self of person and self of phenomena. None of these have inherent existence. And in the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, we also find the implicit teaching of the five paths. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard. Once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha monks and a great gathering of the Sangha Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity, no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye, dhatu, no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, conscious, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita, since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra, Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Teta om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Teta om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Teta om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is, one should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas rejoiced when the Blessed One had said this. Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Aga samara jasandara samara yabe ata onkati kati paragati prasangati badiso papa konchi sanchi kai tembe doji she lobo doji meba doji shiwa doji jagi bachi medu bichi daji shenengari aso ha keren don jaje je wa da me don ne be jan dan wa dan don ba ju jin bon zon zon joji dashi de jan den da de le oh. Mandala offering is request for teaching. Fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready. The shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry there was no screen share. That's my fault. I didn't enact screen share. And yeah, I really appreciate being able to do this. I hope you find the little tips helpful. A lot of people are, talking Dharma these days and teaching texts and technicalities. And, I want to offer that, but I also would like to offer, and I think that, because of the time that I spent with Rinpoche, I'd like to offer more about how to apply these actual things to our daily life, how to actually use the Lam Rim as a guideline on how to live instead of information that we, as I was saying before, just use on a cushion. And just using the information on a cushion isn't going to be powerful enough. It's too little of the day. If you're really good at it and you can muscle your way through it, what are you going to do? An hour? And most of that hour, if you aren't training the rest of the day, most of that hour is not as awesome as you may think it is. As a practitioner who's gone through a lot of phases and been through the phases of cushion only phases in early stages, and had a lot of really fancy special things I thought were going on sitting there for various reasons. And it wasn't until I started to really see that, oh, instructions for practice, and practice is on and off the cushion. It wasn't until I started to see, okay, how does human life of leisure and opportunity work off the cushion? How does death and impermanence work off of the cushion? How does reflecting on future life and refuge work off the cushion? How does 6 preparations, preparing for meditation, how would that work off of the cushion? How would I apply a mandala offering at 12:30 in the afternoon, a half hour after class is over? How would I do this, and how would that be helpful? So it's about figuring out how to make these instructions for practice. And when you do that, you unfortunately are going to find out that the sitting part was kind of like, I don't know, wishful thinking, which was maybe necessary to get you to do the other part. So I'm not putting it down, but I'm saying if that's all you're doing, then a lot of what's happening on that cushion is BS. Because you're just like turning on it's almost like you're turning on calm music and getting yourself into a spot that's your special spot. You know how to get to your special spot, and the buffet Dharma you've grabbed to get you into that special spot. But when you start unbuffet Dharming it, start stages of the path all day, and then seeing all day what's not really working out in your mind, then you know what to do when you sit down. And it's not all that stuff you were doing because you weren't ready to do it. And the stuff that you were doing as primary becomes glance meditation secondary, and something that you would never have spent a half an hour on before becomes primary in your meditation. And then when you get up, your mind will be different at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m. than it was, because you knew what to do on the cushion to affect your mind, because you've been paying attention to it and you know the problem. And how do you pay attention to it, and how do you know the problem? Well, the Dharma says that the way our mind should work. Is that how it's working? So you have to have the wisdom arisen from hearing. You have to know what the Dharma says just your mind should be working like, in order for you to have happiness in the future and not suffer again. So you go throughout your day and you see, is it working like this? And then you apply some of these higher principles like bodhicitta. These are, acting as trying to make our minds have this basis, just making more basis and more basis. It's the only way you're going to know what to do on the cushion. Everybody wants to have a practice, wants to have this thing is the only thing they do every day, and then they get up and do their day. But when you get up and do your day, that's practice all day that guides your sitting practice. It's so important to link these two together, because you'll create your own meditation world. And I've seen it. I've seen people do it for long, long, long time. And there's no I've been doing this for so many years and I'm still like flying off the handle in no different degree than I did 20 years ago. No degree difference. How could that be? Well, what led up? What did you come in contact with? What did you pay attention to? And how did you discriminate that? How did it make you feel? And then what was your intention from there? You have to have the Dharma to know how to investigate that. And then you say, oh, I discriminated that and I overvalued that. I thought that this thing that was so beautiful, this woman was so beautiful and attractive and had objective existence of beautiful attraction. This means that if half of my day is led by that, I need to get on my cushion and meditate on the reality of impurity and ugliness and 9 orifices leaking. And applies suppression instead of fancy meditation. I need to get my mind more in contact with reality in a lot of ways, not just the nature of reality, the reality that's empirical all around us that we just refuse to pay attention to. Eyes leaking, nose leaking, ears leaking, mouth leaking, sexual organ leaking, anus leaking. Yet we find that as something some people become obsessed, stalkers. What's the problem there? The discrimination. The discrimination, seeing something at the way that it isn't. Forget emptiness. Seeing this something as so clean and pure that's putrid and foul. So suppression sometimes is necessary. And we have to kind of do the way that we look at things. And when we get into the Lamrim Chemo, and we're looking at the 6 types of suffering, and we start to see this cycle that we're caught in, it becomes very clear to us that all of this misapprehension has been leading us over and over and over again into unfortunate circumstances. But the only way that we can begin to look at this chapter is to establish this idea of previous lives. And the way that we do this isn't going to happen overnight, especially, in our culture where we don't really have that as much. It's not like we were born and everyone told us that you have a past life and a future life and you have this acquired, correctly assuming knowledge. We have to kind of work at it. So in Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika Karika, it talks about working at it through looking at this moment's consciousness came from a previous moment's consciousness, and starting to find that we can't find a beginning, and that this moment's sense power that can come into contact, with an object that allows us to perceive it came from a previous moment's sense power that came from a previous moment's sense power. And this wind, this breathing in and out, this knowing that we need to breathe in and out came from some sort of previous familiarization with breathing in and out. This breathing in and out comes from some kind of previous kind of inhalation, exhalation, even if it's a subtle level. There's a continuity of wind, a continuity of sense power, a continuity of consciousness. And we have to establish that these things, are created by previous moments, not by external factors, not by an external creator God, not created from themselves. They're created by previous moments. And we start to track it back and we find this beginningless life. And then when we see that consciousness and mind and body are separate, these are, connected and work with each other, but they're separate. This body, dies, but the mind is just temporal moments of knowing. And the mind goes on forever in Buddhism. So I say in Buddhism, this is how we're analyzing it. We say the mind goes on forever. So this is for your analysis. And when we look at these various types of suffering that we have to endure, why are we doing this? And I was thinking about this. I was taking a class in Geshe-la, I think 2 weeks ago in Tibetan. And I was thinking about why are we thinking of all of these other types of suffering? We have enough of them. You know, why are we going so far out there with this? And in Dharmakirti's text, it's very interesting. And I promised myself, if I said nothing else today, I would talk about this main topic. And I think it's so important. It was literally like punched me in the mouth with like, that's why. It's so cool when that happens. Like, it's not that I had a doubt that meditating on all of this stuff was really, really important. I didn't have that doubt, but it wasn't so like solid that I could, really just felt like, oh yeah, shout it from the rooftops, feeling, believe it, way. So Dharmakirti talks about renunciation, the desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence. So when we talk about renunciation, most of us think, it's like some sort of aversion, like, because we meditate on the first noble truth and we meditate on all of these downfalls of cyclic existence. So this sounds like we're just trying to get mad at samsara. But usually, this aversion type feeling is created around events in our life that we want to get out of. So if we only use those events as our basis for, oh God, I got to practice Buddhism. Mom got cancer and passed away. I've got to practice. I feel so empty and hollow. I'm so angry at death. I'm so angry at the suffering of separation. This is renunciation. I'm day and night. I'm just going to practice Buddhism. So is this renunciation? Well, Dharmakirti says no. Dharmakirti says this is something like a hollow. And what's wrong with that is it's sometimes they say sugar cane, or they use a lot of analogies. Like it's sweet on the outside, but there's nothing in there. Nothing to substantiate it. It's just because of one experience going on. So you've had this, I've had this, where you have when I first got to Buddhism, extreme suffering life events that, throw you into this practice, and you're angry at the separation. You're angry at this. Why is everything like this? So it starts to feel like when you study the Four Noble Truths, that's what you're just supposed to do, is like develop this aversion. But Dharmakirti says this about it. I'm going somewhere with, so why are we meditating on the 6 sufferings, 8 sufferings, and 3 sufferings? This is all connected. Why are we just saying my mom died, and staying in those moments, staying in the moments that we're truly kind of having? Well, Dharmakirti says the renunciation some feel towards the present suffering is only anger or aversion. It's just aversion, pushing away. In samsara, we're either grabbing stuff or we're pushing it away with like anger, with aversion. So Dharmakirti says it's usually just inversion, and it's not inclined towards freedom from attachment. So renunciation, as we know in Lama Tsongkhapa's great 3 principal paths, says day and night seeking transcendent liberation. Not day and night being mad at suffering. It's a positive mental state that, oh, good, I can never have to suffer again. Now, in order to create that kind of, I could never have to suffer again, you have to think about all the potential, because for attachment to self, there's still at that time, and seek other situations for happiness. So it says the renunciation some feel towards the present suffering is but aversion, and not inclined towards freedom from attachment. For attachment to the self is still there at that time, and they seek out other situations for happiness. Since this aversion is caused by a great misery, it will last as long as the great misery lasts. You'll only want to keep practicing as long as the great misery lasts. Once the great misery disappears, you'll return to your normal state of non-renunciation. So if you're just looking at this little life around you and using that as your indicator only of what the truth of suffering is, you're not going to have renunciation unless you're having a bad day. Or yesterday was bad and enough that you practice today. But if you study the First Noble Truth, and it's in the whole way, you'll see that there is nothing that is satisfying, and that there's something that's only satisfying. And then that something that's only satisfying becomes your focus. Not that these are bad. You use this as reasons. 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, 3 sufferings. For you to want liberation. The reasons that make you see the downfalls of cyclic existence, but then that just cues you, once you learn there's something better, and you know that all things are dependent on causes, you know that you can create causes for better. So it's all about now, oh, I'm just going to be, oh, this is so awesome. I'm causing for better. I'm making causes for better. Day and night, I'm making causes for better. It's not, a lot of Buddhists get too wrapped up and they don't understand it, I don't think, this First Noble Truth. And they go into this like, everybody's unhappy. You see them teaching the Dharma. Everybody's so unhappy sometimes. Oh, and then we have the truth of suffering. This is liberating. If we know 8 suffering, 6 suffering, 3 suffering, we're golden because we have a reason to want nirvana. A reason to want the best. We don't have a reason to want the best for ourselves unless we know the first truth. We have no reason to want it. We don't think it's possible. We think this is as good as it gets. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad. You know, that's life. But really, it's so amazing that when you study the downfalls of cyclic existence, it says, oh, that's why. Oh, now I get it. This makes sense. That doesn't sound angry. That's not angry at all. That's, oh my gosh, I can become a Buddha? Oh my gosh, I could never have to have the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, the suffering of separation from what I want, the suffering of meeting with what I, the separating from what is pleasant and meeting what is unpleasant and not getting what I want, mental and physical suffering, uncertainty, unsatisfaction, shucking off bodies in rebirth, going high to the low, having no companions we can count on, suffering of change, pervasive compounded suffering. Oh, that's the problem. You've almost like a lot of my life, I felt like somebody wasn't letting me in on something because everyone else seems so satisfied. And the First Noble Truth allows me to say, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay, thank goodness. And then the second truth says, oh, really, thank goodness. Thank goodness now it's all explained. Okay, this is normal. It would only happen like this. And now you've told me why. And now you told me how to make it, great. That's not depressing. That's not negative. That's not woe is me. That's empowering. Empower yourself by the First Noble Truth and the Second Noble Truth. Identify what suffering is and say, okay, this makes sense now. Why isn't anything working out the way I always think that it will? And then it doesn't end the way that I want it to. Okay, now this makes sense. And then you find out, oh, this is a result. All results have causes. Oh, good. Okay, so if the cause for this isn't there, then it'll just go away. So does that mean that I just like evaporate? And then you find out, no, 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 no. You can just not ever have to suffer again. And you can help everyone learn how to do that. Wow. You know, it's so incredible, so empowering. The first and second noble truth. I mean, I remember a year ago, someone called me and was like, enough already with this death and impermanence and suffering. And, you know, I don't want to think about that. Why? It's wonderful. It's wonderful to think about that. It's not something we should shy away from. If we think about it, it'll just be like Rinpoche said, moving into a new hotel. In real life, we love going on vacation and going to this hotel and that hotel. Why aren't we a little more flexible with the long run? Be more flexible with the long run. Be as flexible as you are now about moving here and going there. You're just going here and going there. So when you die, which hotel do you want to go to? Do you want to go to a really unsafe hotel that smells all the time? And, you know, where people come in and harm you? Or do you want to go to a hotel that is like this, if we're looking at the small scope, where you could evolve and never be forced into any kind of hotel you didn't want to, beyond your control ever again? Because it's from this basis we can figure out how to end forced death. We can end forced birth, aging, sickness, and death. We can end the 8, 6, and 3 sufferings with this human basis. So what are we doing? What are we doing to make sure that when it is time for us to die, because we're all going to, what do we think? If we don't talk about it, it won't happen? We were born, it's going to happen. You know, Buddha Shakyamuni, you know, took off his robe and said, look at the body of a Buddha. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are in the nature of suffering. All phenomena are the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Nirvana is peace. You're your own island. It's the final teaching of the Buddha. Peace. The Buddha's body, gone. You don't think yours will? And if it's going to, it's just like, oh, okay. You know, you go to first grade, you go to second grade, you go to life, you go to death. It's just part of the process of this continuum. It's just a continuum that's going on. There's nothing wrong. It's nothing scary. It's okay. It's just this continuum that's going on. And these people that we love around us, only way that we can really connect with them and help them is to figure out how to make this continuum that goes on go on in the best way possible. And this is what our practice is all about. Learning how to make this long run really meaningful. Because we've had a long run up to now, beginningless long. Previous life, previous life, previous life, previous life, previous life, previous life, previous life. You won't be able to stop. But we don't have to say samsara will never stop. So we have this opportunity now, and I just hope that everyone can, in a positive way, look at these Four Noble Truths and see it as so empowering and a sigh of relief that now we know the reality. And now we know what we can do about it. And if you take this into your daily life, and if you know the reality and know what you can do about it more and more and more throughout your day, you will. And then your mind will just naturally evolve because of that familiarization. So that's enough for today. And we'll get into more of the 6 sufferings next week. But I wanted to really, send it home that if you're only thinking about the suffering of this life and things that happen, when you're happy, you're not going to really throw yourself into Dharma practice. But if you've meditated on the First Noble Truth in a complete way, and you see that no matter what's going on, it's at least it's the suffering of change, and you start to recognize that every moment is something that you want to be free from because there's something better for you out there, then this is real renunciation, seeking what's better for you out there. Because if you're just trying to wallow in what's going on and throwing yourself into practice and doing some mantras and trying to seek divinations because of a certain problem that's happening right now, when things get really good or you come into some money and you get a new relationship and stuff, liberation won't seem quite as important. But if you've meditated on the First Noble Truth in a complete way, no matter what happens in your life, highs, lows, whatever, you're going to recognize it as that moment, no matter what, whether you just won the lottery or the person that you love more than anything just died. Either one of those moments will inspire you in the moment to practice the Dharma, and you won't see one as more distasteful than the other because you'll recognize that both are distasteful because both are samsara. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. So if you think that, I wanted to read about it in Nagarjuna's text today, but I didn't. But, when you talk about descending the high and the low, you've had all these incredible experiences in God's realms, and you've also been crushed in hell, So when you see this total picture, you start to day and night seek transcendent liberation. Okay, so if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Okay. Prayer for the flourishing of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. Sorry, my book's all mixed up. There we go. Just have to read it backwards, forwards. Okay. Bear with me. How that happened. Prayer for the flourishing of Tsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Endraketu, he made his vow to conquer and his offspring, praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Lineage of pure view and conduct might spread. He offered a white crystal rosary to the sage. In short, by white crystal rosary, the sage who gave him a conch and prophesies. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction. His pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog. His pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning. Reverent, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating for all for beings and doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scripture is definitive and interpretive or without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanations of the 3 Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the 3 highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Hourly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the 2 stages practice, he allied without clash the 2 stages of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, hard essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish by the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the 3 beings paths, the quick-acting Lord Vaishravana Karmayana. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious Guru's lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Sorry, we're going a little bit over, I think. The concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lisandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva, imagining Vajrasattva in front of you, inseparable from your root Lama. And imagine that white, red, and blue light rays and nectars are showering down on you and all sentient beings and purifying your bodies, yours and all sentient beings' body, speech, and mind by them transforming into white Oms, red Ahs, and blue Homs, purifying our body, speech, and mind, respectively. Om benzo sato samaya manabalaya benzo sato samaya jidati me vazo the me vazo me vanrag me vazo vasiri me rajas abagam zinju me gidam shriyan guru ma ho bhagavan sarvata gata benzo mami moka benzo baba mahasamaya zaba om ve jarama 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 jikala jarama jidati jarama 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 jikala jarama jidati jarama 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 jakala rajama jidati jarama. Anyone experiencing any obstacles to meeting with the Dharma may be purified. May all those obstacles be removed by the mantra of the Drapasundri, the three wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Hare Greva Garuda Om Hey. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land, surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsaras. And a prayer of supplication to Nangyo Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, written by myself on March 6, 2023, 1 year after his passing. Homage to Khensa Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om 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 Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling jewels is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like a teacher who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineage flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears, elucidating the teachings for beings of three capacities. Now the sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. The spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our heart would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness so they know who you really are. Thank you, everyone. I really encourage all of you to rely on authentic texts. Look at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, the medium scope section that goes through the Four Noble Truths, truths of suffering, origin, cessation, and path, and really get to know them and get to understand how it's through relying upon this understanding that you will truly want to practice Dharma day and night, and you'll feel a sense of relief that there's something you can do about the things that don't seem to make any sense, the whys that we all experience. So thank you, all of you, and I encourage you to practice the Dharma, and I hope your mind is virtuous this week, because that's all you can do to have happiness. Thank you.